All right, Jenny, I'm going to start in if that's okay with you. So we'll understand how this is going to go. So I'm going to mute everybody so we don't hear those children screaming or anything like that. And then we will also take some questions at the end. I think the most important thing is we're going to learn from each other, and let's see if we can do this in a manner that I can talk for about 15 or 20 minutes and then do some questions. And we all have different backgrounds. I know I've had a lot of different titles and done a lot of things in my business career, but I think all of us would pride ourselves in being problem solvers. And I think that's what's important today in this new environment. I've noticed by being at home, I've gained a few pounds. I'm not at the gym every day. And I have to admit, I haven't put on makeup, and I'm very casually dressed. So my dry cleaning bill has gone down dramatically too. When I look at a business and when we look at government, and John's had that experience also, you know, you always hear that's the way it's always been. Well, from this point on, that should never be said, because everything is topsy-turvy and everything is new, and it is never going to be the same way ever again. I don't care what it is, but it will all be different. We've had the two crises. We've had the health crisis, the pandemic, and then we've also had the economic cataclysmic event because we're all socially isolated. You know, we look at a perspective, and I'm going to take you through a few with government, a few with other merchants, a few with how you can react and learn from what other people have done in this situation. And I think we have to look at some social change that's very, very vital right now, and we have to recognize all those changes that are taking place. And I'm going to give you some ideas of what to do going forward as we come out of the lockdown. And, you know, people always said government's behind. And the analogy I always heard, there are very few people as old as me, maybe Marge, you and I go back, you know, but the 8-track, that was well before CDs or cassettes in the car. And sometimes people talk about government being behind. And if anyone has any experience, the main thing the state of New Jersey uses for their unemployment insurance is based on a programming language, COBOL, from 1950s. And, you know, it crashed the other day, and they had to bring in people with a lot of experience to try and do that. Government has different ways to get their revenue, and I think that you all understand that the revenue is based on taxes, whether it's income tax, property tax for local government, sales tax, casino wagering. Everybody is right now on taxing because people aren't working. You know, what did I see? 26 million people in a month have applied for unemployment. If you think about that, that's nothing short of apocalyptic in some things. But the government's come up with some programs. You know, we're now at that stage where people in some states are asking, what is greater, the lockdown or the danger to the economy? And I think that as we restart the economy, it'll happen in stages. It won't happen all at once. Someone asked me yesterday, why is the consumer so important? And you may or may not know this, but consumer spending drives 70% of the economy in this country. 70%. The government is about 17%, and business spending is about 19%. And some of the other goods and services would be from exports. So the SBA, they have spent $350 billion. I want you to think about that in 14 days. And we've all heard that some people got the funds that we didn't think should get them. One company paid it back. But that $350 billion in 14 days is more than they've spent in the past 14 years. That's got to sink in so you understand the depth of the spending and what government's doing. We have now, the IRS has another program where some of you may have gotten $1,200, or if you're married, $2,400. If you've done direct deposit for your IRS refund. And then some people have not gotten the money yet because they don't do direct deposit. And hopefully those checks will go out tomorrow to help stimulate the economy. Someone asked me last Friday when I was social distancing with my neighbors, why the government wasn't prepared for this. You know, we can war game other things, but they've never war gamed this. And I think the reason that's happened is because if you think about it, everybody, no one envisioned anything like this happening. I know I certainly didn't. We thought that all these things were well behind us with the Spanish flu and some of the other things, and SARS and A variant flu, and it was never going to come here. And we learned that it did come here. The state governors jumped in, starting from Washington State, Governor Inslee, who was the first one to confront the virus. Quickly, the governor of Ohio stopped some of the NCAA games and some sporting events, and they assumed new powers. And if you think about this, some of it we've heard is draconian. And Marge, you've got a background in government too. I know that this is shocking for everyone the way it's happened, but you know, we've stopped people from assembling where they want to go. We've stopped them from movement where they want to go, from traveling. We've stopped them from going to houses of worship. They can still worship, but it's similar to this on Zoom, and they're not actually physically present. I think about tragedy that's happened and people who've passed away and you can't go to a funeral. Or I know 2 weddings that were postponed during this. The parks have been closed. We see certain stores that were deemed essential and they have risen in importance and their revenue has not been impacted the way some others have. We've seen governors stop people from other states coming into their state borders. And we have also seen something where elections have been postponed for primaries. Courts have been closed. From my perspective, in looking at banking, it took about 16 years for the ATM to be adopted and about 20 years for people to actually buckle their seatbelts to prevent death. Today, in the last 27 days, everyone's gotten used to social distancing, right? And here in New Jersey, in less than 10 days, everyone's gotten used to wearing a mask when they go out. So change has happened and people have changed their approach to things. Look at us all using Zoom. Not a lot of people had used Zoom prior to last month. Look at the growth in telemedicine, or if you have school-age children, whether they be college or elementary school, they're learning on a distance platform. Totally different. Look at what happens. Government's going to cut back spending. They have to. You'll still have fire and police protection. Schools will still be open, but the median strip might not be trimmed every month like it has been. And you may find road work being delayed and construction projects postponed. Right now, if you're building, you've been shut down in New Jersey. There's no construction inspections. We have to talk about a business strategy for all of us and some key takeaways I want to share with you. Right now, we all have time, so let's think backwards. If you know that you could open June 1st, here we are in the end of April, what are you thinking? What steps can you take? What can you anticipate? How are you staying in touch with your clients or customers? We all know in business, cash is king in this kind of environment. And what can we do to put ourselves in front of our clientele? What can we do to change people's habits to get them, if we own a retail store, to come out to visit us, to come to a restaurant, and to actually sit down at a table and have a meal. In the consumer packaged goods, you'll find that they're very good at making things more affordable. I think consumer spending will drop drastically. People just will question every purchase now. So if you're a merchant who sells things, you might want to think about smaller sizing and advertising affordability. You know, if you sell packaged goods, Coca-Cola admitted that their business is off 50% because so much of it is stadiums for hotels or bars, and that business has disappeared. I get reminded from certain people about my relationship with them. I have an accountant, and he is phenomenal with all the confusion over the government programs. He sends me updates almost every other day, and I find them helpful. I get a lot of other emails that just want me to buy more things. And I think that the accountant's doing a better job maintaining that customer relationship. He hasn't asked me to spend any money yet, but he knows his guidance is pretty good, and I'll follow him. I'm looking right now at a frightening trend, but I think it will happen. I saw it in South Florida in 2008 to 2010. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of the local merchants will never reopen, whether they're hair salons, nail salons, maybe fitness centers, small gyms, workout with a personal trainer, physical therapy. They may never come back. And what that means for vacant storefronts and the loss of employment for our local communities is staggering. The good news is Netflix saw 16 million new customers last month. Not that any of us get any revenue from that, but that was a positive. I also think that that social change, when you get to a bank these days, you better not come in unless you're wearing a mask and have gloves on, right? Where at one time that would be a 911 call, but people aren't doing that now. I want to give you another example that would take forward how people are moving in a different direction. In a food bank that I'm familiar with, they normally would give things one-offs or small deliveries to houses and make things available. That doesn't work anymore. So they took over the property of a shopping center that is closed because of the virus. And they went to the wholesale distributors, not the traditional food distributors, but wholesale people who supply restaurants and stadiums and hotels, and they have bulk. And they were able to repackage it and provide meals for a week for families. And just yesterday, they dispensed 800 meals. And the sad part is, you know, they came in cars to pick it up. There were over 2,000 cars to pick it up, but they only had 800 meals, so there's still an unmet need. We see a decrease in advertising because you can't buy a car, you can't buy furniture, travel is stopped, you're not buying apparel, but newspaper reading is up. If you look at people going to the net and looking at the news, that's up. So I guess people are paying more attention. If you're looking at social trends and why they're important to recognize, working from home, going to school from home, there's no commute. Are people more productive because they don't have to commute? This is a hard environment for a lot of people to use Zoom, but I think people are adapting to it. One of my neighbors commented it was kind of like it was 30 years ago, where people go out with their family, the young children, for a walk at night, and that never had happened. Social interaction is totally different. When we go back to work, what's going to happen? Are you going to have to take the temperature of your employees before they come to work? Are you going to have to platoon people? Meaning if you have an open environment and people don't have individual offices, are you going to only be able to staff every other partition? Will people have to prove that they don't have the virus in addition to taking people's temperature? They have to have some sort of card that they don't carry it. We've seen some environmental things that there's less pollution, and that's phenomenal, but no one's driving, virtually no one's driving. But in the same token, we're seeing recycling decline in importance. You cannot take the reusable shopping bags to the supermarket anymore. When you go to the Wawa or the Starbucks, the reusable mug, you can't use that. It's only paper right now. We're seeing a huge increase in passive recreation, walking, cycling, hiking until the state closed the parks. We're not seeing people on playgrounds or ball field. And, you know, there's a whole scenario about what happens when those facilities reopen. Will people leave the urban environment and move out to the countryside because the conveniences of the city is also where the greatest concentration? New York has over a third of the national coronavirus impact is in New York State, and that's something that's crazy. We've seen certain businesses being favored. I think we all know we're on a first name with our favorite manager at the grocery store, right? Because they have things vital that we need. If I look at things that groceries have been through, supermarkets, they're limited their hours. They're not open the same hours they have been before. They're definitely more profitable. There are absolutely positively no returns. People used to spend 60% of the food dollar out, pizza, restaurants. Now it's, 90% spent buying things and cooking. So the business is up. They're not giving out samples anymore. Bulk stacking of bread and rolls is a thing of the past. So you have to buy 6 or 4 or a dozen of something. And everything sells. Think about that. Whatever I can put on my shelf is selling. I also saw a local merchant, the Ravitz family, do some incredible things with communicating through social media, what was available, where things stood, what their new hours were, how they were cleaning their shopping carts, and going to Herculean, truly amazing proportions to provide for their clientele. We've also seen the growth of Instacart and online ordering. They have now exceeded their expectation for 3 years in the future. The number of people who have signed up for Instacart. I think the toughest thing right now on Instacart is you can't get a slot. And then if you do get a slot, it's only about a 70% fill ratio right now. So that may make people go out again. E-commerce, how would you go out and buy a book today? It's definitely an e-commerce kind of thing. Libraries are closed and things like that. Someone asked me to try and explain from a manufacturing standpoint, and I understand that from working in a manufacturing environment, why toilet paper became the new coin of the realm, so to speak. The jokes about it are just incredible. But people went from going to school and to work, and that toilet paper is shipped in bulk in boxes of 48 or 96 people. And that doesn't work in a retail environment. And you go from 1-ply to 2-ply. And there's something that we forget. In the last 20 years, American businesses adopted a just-in-time. We want something when we want it. And warehouses are empty. They don't stockpile things the way they used to. And that has something to do with all of this. I have actually seen some merchants resort to stocking the bulk toilet paper on their shelves, but it doesn't have a UPC code. It's not cellophane wrapped. You buy one roll at a time. It's not efficiently designed for retail distribution. When we talk about what's going to happen and we think about things in the future, and I know we all have done this, like I said, what steps do you have to take for your workers when they come back? Are you going to let them eat lunch in a common lunchroom or in a cafeteria? Do you have to take the microwave out? Do you have to take the refrigerator out? Do they only get to have box meals delivered? What happens when it's a celebration for somebody? Do you encourage people to bring in cake or things like that for their birthdays? I mean, these seem like small things, but the social norm has changed. And as business owners, you'll have to think about some of these things. We always talk about the importance of planning. And right now, time is on your side. You have time to get your mind around what you're going to do when we come out of this. And I work for several very, very large multinational corporations, and we always had different business plans. And I want to share with you the thinking from one of those companies that I work for. I worked for Sony at a period of rapid growth in the electronics industry. And we had plans for our product. And then we also had other plans besides the product life cycle what would happen if the competition dropped the price on this product, the competitive product? If someone dropped their price on a TV, how would that impact us? And what would happen if someone came up with new technology? How would that impact us? We used to like to be the technology leaders, and I'm looking. Tom, you'll probably remember this when we had compact disc players and we had CDs, and Sony was the first one that had a carousel CD player, played 5 at a time, and no one else had that. We had to market to ourselves for about 2 years, but we wanted to make sure that did not impact us. So, we looked at competition, we looked at technology, we looked at a regulatory environment. Was the government going to impose import quotas? Was new packaging requirements? Was there going to be from an economic standpoint, what was the dollar to yen ratio? So part of what I'm trying to suggest to you is that you might want to plan. Let me give you some very, very hard avenues that planning should take. You know, I want to summarize a lot of what we said. There's, some of it's just staggering, the size of the economy and what the government's giving away. But let's bring this down to a brass tacks for all of us. Time is on our side. Businesses are not opening up tomorrow. I would communicate with your customers, be that email. Remember, my accountant is doing a phenomenal job. Some of the traditional merchants are not. I see great communication from REI, the local store in Marlton, but they're a national company, and how to go outside, how to enjoy the environment, sending me backdrops for nature if I want to use them for Zoom calls. All of that's great. What are your plans to reopen your business? Tell your customers. I'm sure you have databases. Are you using Constant Contact? Are you involved with social media so people can follow you? Do you actually have wisdom to give to people now about, if you're a plumber, what they should be doing? If you're in the HVAC business, how to get ready for changing their filters and things of that nature. Small things that make your value go up that really don't cost you anything because it's done electronically. The other thing I think we need to do is adjust our product mix. Consumer spending, we know, will drop. How do you change your packaging? How do you make things affordable? If it's a normal dozen bagels with the break, do you make it half a dozen? Do you make it a deal for 2 for $1? These are things that you have to think about in your business. How do you support other small businesses? I think that's vital. We talk about small and medium business being the lifeline of local communities. Those are the people who sponsor ball teams, community events, fireworks displays, 5Ks. It's national companies do it, but it's the small people who get a bigger impact. How do you think differently? Remember the example I gave you, the food bank, that they had to take things that were already packaged in bulk and then break them down and distribute them to 800 families at one instance, as opposed to having it spread out along the continuum. So that made it a lot easier for people. This is a tough one, but the acknowledgement of social norms. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I cover these things. If you take credit cards, are people going to want to sign on a data terminal anymore? If you have an ATM, are people going to feel comfortable putting their finger on the ATM anymore? These are things that you have to look at. What is your return policy? Supermarkets and lots of other merchants in the last 6 weeks have stopped taking returns. Yet I read this morning that Delta gave back more money in revenue in the last 30 days than they took in. So that you may think about that too. What's your return policy as a merchant? How can you be vital? We all know the supermarkets were vital. Apparel merchants have all been closed, from Lululemon to Gap. You could get apparel at Target or Walmart, and that was it. So how do you make yourself vital? I know that I'm home and I am using more office supplies. So, that's important. I've gone to see my local printer and print supply guy and buy cartridges for my printer because I needed to do those. And these are things that we have to think about on our own business model. I now want to open it up to some questions. If you can use the chat at the bottom, and just tell me who you are, and I'll repeat the question for everybody, and I'll read it. And then I want to close. I'll stay as long as we have questions, because my job is trying to help you and give you a different perspective. But I know we all have in our mind what's the first thing we're going to do when things open up. So I'll share with you my thinking. I know Jenny has different thinking than mine, but because we spoke about it. But there's things we all want to do. So, But yeah, so if you could, in the bottom, if you're comfortable with the chat, I think that would make it much easier as opposed to having 70 people try and talk over each other. That may not work out. Okay. If you're on a phone, it can be difficult because you have to toggle up, but otherwise, we all have chats. Okay. I'm looking for some questions. Oh, okay. So this is a great question. Um, who has applied for the SBA loan and what is your status? So it would be interesting if someone else could phrase back, because I know that people, depending upon the bank and how quick you've been, I think that's been an indication. Not all banks were created equal in this instance. If anyone has applied for it and you've actually gotten your money, if you could let us know. I think 2 people have asked virtually the same question. That would be great.
I can, if you want me to answer, I can tell you we've had a number of clients that actually have applied and have gotten funded over the last couple weeks, from banks such as TD and PNC down to some community banks. So there's been plenty that have been funded, although we've got some that are on hold for the next tranche of the PPP.
Thank you. And I know some people have said they started the process 4 times and they have an SBA number. I know the forms were changed 3 times that I know of, but there's no money yet. Hopefully, I see some of that stuff is going on in Congress. Someone else has said, who's on the call, they've actually gotten the money, the PPP, and his bank has been phenomenal to deal with. I see Marge, you want to know if they're trying to determine if there could be any additional statewide recovery funding. Like do you really want me to read this like during Superstorm Sandy? But yes, if so, projects would have to be shovel ready. I think that's vital for the construction industry. I think it's also vital for local government, and hopefully that money will be coming. You know, and I don't want to be in a political discussion because you can't win, but I know that sometimes, let me say this as delicately as I can without being political, there's a disagreement right now whether the federal government should be bootstrapping the states. To my way of thinking, there's no question about what's right, but those of us who've been involved in the political process, and John, I know you can empathize with this. There's a difference between running an election and then between campaigning and governing. And right now we need more governing and less campaigning, right? So I also see that someone else said that they had gotten their money from the SBA, and they got a 10K advance very, very quickly. And they're waiting on the next round of funding too. And remember, that money is not only for payroll, but the PPP can also be used to pay some of your expenses. 25% can be used for your expenses, your rent, your insurance, certainly your utilities. I've had someone else just ask me what I thought was going to go on with schools. I don't think that elementary or secondary schools will open in the state this year whatsoever. They would be open for about 3 weeks. I don't think that's going to happen. And I also think that the entire college process is being reevaluated. I saw there have been lawsuits brought against certain universities because they haven't refunded tuition dollars, room and board, things of that nature. I do know a friend of mine whose daughter came home for spring break the first week in March from school, and she flew out of Atlanta. And when school had been canceled, they had to fly back to Atlanta, get her car, which was at the Atlanta airport, then go to her apartment, dormitory, and clean everything out. And it was not easy to get in, but you know, a lot of kids still have things at school. So that's also something that we have to think about. And what does that mean? You know, a standardized test. The governor in this state and most other states have abdicated a lot of that. They have taken the standardized test off the table because they can't do it. Someone else just asked me, with schools closed, do I think they've saved any money? And it's interesting because we're not running transportation systems, so the buses aren't running. But most districts have elected to pay their staff, even if they're not working, the classroom aides, the bus drivers, because if they furloughed all those people, I guess that would transfer it to the federal government as opposed to the state. And they may not be able to get those people when they need to hire and bring them back in the fall. And no one knew if schools would open this year either. I feel very, very bad for college seniors, high school seniors, missing proms, graduations, things of that nature. But they are just terrible times. It's amazing that someone just indicated that they're in the engineering and architectural business, and there's been a huge uptick in RFPs for construction for educational facilities. So that would be a boon for certainly local environment, economy, putting people back to work. It'd definitely be that. We have another one who someone wanted to know if it's correct that partners in an LLC cannot collect from the PPP, and it's very interesting. The LLC, I'll defer to one of the accountants, but certainly is a little bit trickier than having a subchapter S or a typical C corp for picking up money from the PPP. Someone has asked me, and we actually have an expert on the phone who's far more intelligent about this than I am, but will people want to go back to stadiums again? Will entertainment bloom the way it did before? Concerts, football, baseball. Will the NBA go ahead with a plan and play their playoffs in arenas with no one there? But when you're in a compressed environment, there's a lot of thought that people don't want to sit next to one another. My friend had to fly to Atlanta to pick up his daughter's car. The middle seats were closed off. Now, it's bizarre. There were only 35 people on the plane that seated 140. But, I think that is that's indicative of what may happen. And what happens to people who get a refund if the Major League Baseball or the NBA and the NHL, if that doesn't come back? Do they get a refund? Is that rolled into the next year's ticket tariff? So we'll never know. I think that movie theaters are, people are looking at Netflix. We talked about they have 116 million new users in the last 30 days. Will people go back to movie theaters? Will legitimate theater continue? I think that there's going to be a longer period of time before that comes back because of the environment. I think restaurants, table seating will open up. I'm not so sure that we're going to be bellied up to the bar and hoisting one or two to celebrate the bar opening again. I don't foresee that. I also see something that's troubling. I see government being more pervasive in our business dealings, from maybe issuing guidelines to what you can do to let your employees come back to work. This is the standard. They have to prove they haven't had the virus. If you're in a food service environment, take the temperatures of people. It's very interesting. One of the questions I just got asked me, is it true that people don't want to come back to work? I spoke to someone who has tried to recall his employees, and he explained it to me. No one wants to come back because with the bonus, the $600 bonus, so they were making about $650 a week as a line chef in his restaurant, and their unemployment was $430. And so with the $600 bonus, they're going to be making more than if they worked. So they're not anxious to come back to work right now. And that's impacting his ability to transition his restaurant from dine-in to takeout, because the people who are familiar with the way he does it have chosen not to come back to work. So good questions. Let's see. What do I think will open first? Great question. I think that you may find stores may open first in front of, and each state will be different. I've seen some things, some people saying gyms should open right away, but I haven't, I don't see that happening right away for a whole bunch of reasons. You know, how do you clean down the equipment between everyone using it and all that sort of stuff? The apparel merchants are suffering. I saw just this morning that Gap has issued and they haven't paid rent. So a lot of shopping plazas and mall owners are not getting rent from these apparel companies. So the apparel companies haven't cleared out their winter goods yet, and they've already taken spring and summer goods in because that stuff has come from overseas. I think the apparel stores will open. I think you'll find a contraction of hours. I also think that most people aren't aware of it, but when you get a certificate of occupancy to open up a store or a restaurant in this state, and just about in every state, it gives you a maximum number of people. I think you'll be held below that maximum. If your maximum is 50, maybe you'll only be able to have 25 people in the store at one time. And that could include your employees, so you may not bring all your employees back. And I think that will happen also. I just have a question about what's the impact on the car industry? Will prices come down? Very interesting question, because car sales have stalled totally, absolutely. People cannot buy a car online. You know, there's franchise fees and there's all kinds of other things. I think manufacturers, much as we saw in 2008 through 2010, will take Herculean things, zero cost financing, markdown leasing. There'll be all kinds of incentives to come in and do a new car. Warranties might be extended forever. I think one of the most amazing things I saw when Hyundai was a new name, if you lost your job, they actually took over. It couldn't be that you quit, but if you were reduced and laid off, they actually took over your payments for the first year. So you may see radical things like that come forward.
Hey, Sandy, it's Jason. I actually wonder if you might see a little bit of the opposite, where people actually go to try and buy cars when it opens back up because they're worried about being around other people on public transportation and enclosed spaces. So from some of the union work I've done with the operating engineers, they've looked at other countries that have started to open up and seen more people on the roads actually because they're afraid of what's around them. So that's something to watch.
Well, Jason, I think you're right. Public transportation is empty right now. You know, the airline industry is running at 5% of capacity. You know, that's what they're flying. How do you clean? How do you clean the buses? How do you clean the subways? We saw, all of us graphically, a terrible thing that happened in Philadelphia earlier this month when the Philadelphia police dramatically, forcibly removed a person who didn't have a mask from the bus, because that was a SEPTA policy. So I hope you're right, man. I have friends in the automotive industry, and I know that they would love the business. And I believe that underwriting standards for credit may be relaxed too. You know, if you think about real estate, how do you go out and buy a new house? This is a busy time of year. I just got a question about that. Yeah, that's interesting because people don't necessarily want to let strangers into their house right now. How do they know they don't bring the virus with them? How do you get people to come in and do building inspections? How do you get certification that the house meets all current standards from fire inspection and things of that nature? So I think that's good. That's really good. All right. I want to ask one question, if I can, of all of you, and you can chat and let me know because I am trying to, I'm going to mute everybody for a second, okay? I'm trying to figure out what everyone's going to do first, and Are you going to the bar or a restaurant? Are you going to a gym? Are you going to a salon? Are you, the barber? My girlfriend complains that her roots are showing. Are you going to a gym? Are you going to a doctor? Is your car filthy that you need to get a car washed, or are you going out to get ice cream? If people could think what they're doing, I would love to see. If you want to chat and let me know, that would be great. But I know we all want to celebrate. Marge is already sending me something. Oh, you're coming to my house for dinner. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Once we go back so far, Marge, that's fine. I would love to host both of you. Okay. All right. Just remember, my dog, he comes first. Jason's going out for a haircut, and Marge says she's going out for a haircut. So far, haircuts are great. Rich Bernstein is going for a bike ride, which sounds phenomenal, Rich. I'd like to get on it. Tammy's getting together with friends. Dave wants to do theater, concerts. He's hoping he can do all of that sort of stuff. Ryan said his local dive bar's upgraded. So he can't wait to go. People actually think they're going to go to the Eagles game, which, sports certainly are an outlet. John Runyon tells me he's going to go, and we're all invited to go with him to Key West, which is great because we all need margaritas, right?
I'm in.
Yeah, we're all in. Tom said his girlfriend just cut my hair, so he's all good, but we're going to go visit our grandson in Seattle by car. My gosh, that will take forever. But it's something they have to do. Jenny said that she's not going for ice cream, but she's going to host a DVDLA event live. It's not in Zoom, right, Jenny? That is phenomenal. Absolutely, positively phenomenal. Someone else said that his wife owns a salon, so haircuts aren't an issue. Oh my gosh. Is she doing them outside, or is she inside, Ryan? Is she doing it for all the neighbors as a good deed? That would be amazing.
He's making some exceptions. I think Tim's on the list.
Okay. And then we got some people actually joining Rich on that bike ride, which is interesting. I'm a cyclist. I ride a few thousand miles a year, and the interesting phenomenon to me was people would always take their bikes with their family away, whether they went to the beach or went to Ocean City or Sea Isle or Wildwood. They'd ride there, but they would never ride at home. Now everyone's out on their bikes. It's like phenomenal. It's like a kindred spirit. If they'd only wear helmets, I would feel much better, but they're not doing it. Linda says she's going to cook for all of her friends who are extroverts and haven't done as well as introvert. I hear you. I'm like in a quandary. Am I supposed to shake hands with people? I can't hug them. If I bump my elbow with them, I'm still too close. I have a Labrador, so when I go out, if I use Rocky and fully extend his leash, I'm 8 feet away from people. So I kind of use him as the bridge between distancing. So that is great. A lot of people have written they're going to go. Oh, that's a nice thing to have. He takes it with him. Birthday parties and get together with friends for all of those great birthday parties that people have missed. I love this idea that people are cooking for their friends. And yes, I'm bald, so I'm getting my one haircut. So thanks, Jay. But this has been great. The questions have been phenomenal. If you want, we have all of your emails. If you want to follow up and drop Jenny, if there's something I didn't answer, I'd be more than happy to. If you need some of the information I have, the size of the gross domestic product, what consumer spending is, I didn't want to get into numbers, but I appreciate all of you being so cooperative as we've done this, and it's hard to do this with so many people. Thank you to Jenny for setting it up. You are the ace hostess, as you always are, and I think out of all of them that I saw, besides getting my one haircut and going on a bike ride with Rich, I want to come to the next event that you host, wherever it is, whenever it is, even if we're all going with Runyon to Key West. You know.
Done
So-
deal.
All right, guys. Thank you for your time and
Yes,
thank
Sandy.
you. Oh, go ahead, Judy.
Well, we did schedule a little bit of extra time for people to
Okay.
kind of chat amongst themselves, talk about some ideas. So if you want to, in case you have to jump off, first of all, thank you. That was super awesome. I love your energy and enthusiasm. I think it brightened everyone's day a little bit.
Listen, you should all come to Key West, you know, or with John Runyon, or come to Palm Beach. You know, we love it. You know.
So we do have a few minutes, and like we talked about earlier, I think Jason and I have been talking. So on May 14th, Jason Springer is going to be talking a little bit about marketing and the why and the new norm. So Jason, before everybody starts kind of funneling off, maybe you can talk a little bit about what that's going to look like for us during our presentation. And then I can switch back and take over the reins, Sandy, for the host
Yes,
part and
perfect.
see if people
Right.
want to chat amongst themselves a little bit, if that makes sense, because we do have a little bit more time. Awesome. Jason.
Sure. So first, I just encourage you to send any of your marketing or communications or public relations questions to Jenny in advance so that we can try and make sure the presentation actually speaks to whatever you need. Obviously, it is different times right now. Where should you be marketing? To whom should you be marketing? What should you be saying to them? Should you sympathize and empathize, offer a service? How do you connect with them in this new normal where you can't physically be with them, but you still need to pitch yourself, your services, or your products? And so we'll sort of talk through what the process is going to be. The new normal isn't developed yet, but we do know that a lot of people right now are stuck in their homes or in places looking online. And so are you using the tools you have there? How do you incorporate those tools when things begin to open back up so that you've got a more complete marketing and communications perspective for your brand when we do get back to normal? Because businesses are going to need a full approach as people decide for themselves what their barrier of reentry is. Some people will stay at home longer than others. And so your traditional marketing may not touch all of the audiences that it did at one time right away because people don't feel comfortable being in those areas. So are you speaking to where your audiences are? What do you need to be saying to them? How do you need to be saying it? And where do we go from there?
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I can't wait. So yeah, if you guys have any questions in advance, send those to me. I know, Tim, did you have something that you wanted to
I have a
make?
question. I do. How do you guys feel about I saw an interview last night about the possible use of drones to take pictures and thermal imaging, and also using our cell phones, our Apple devices, or whatever device you have, to keep track of where people are and how close they are as far as social distancing. How do you all feel about that? And as we unfold into the future, how do you feel about it? How it infringes on our social rights?
I hate it. Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I just was curious.
Yeah,
what you guys
no,
think.
me neither. I don't know. I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to turn off my cell phone. I would rather detach from the network than be any part of that. I'm not going to get anything implanted in me. I share a totally different view than a lot of people who are conservative. Well, if there's one thing I've learned from these past 4 weeks and from neighbors and people I speak with, people who have had it with distancing, right? Zoom is no substitute for human interaction. And what I see is this pent-up release where people are just going to be dying for live events because, you know, they miss that. And I think it's part of the human condition. So I mean, honestly, if people are that paranoid and they don't want to get in public, well, then they can stay home. But there's always those kind of people. I think you're going to see just an overflow of people gathering and getting together unless the government tries to stop you. My thought.
I think it goes back to the forefathers, right? So Thomas Jefferson said, anyone that's willing to give up their liberty for freedom is asking for tyranny. So, and I think that, you see the difference in all the other countries, and America is the one place where everybody will play nice and we will listen to the rules, but there comes to a certain point where foreign and domestic starts to come into play. So,
I agree.
So clearly, we have people from different sectors in business, all from our area. This is obviously one of the changes that we've had to make in terms of adjusting to the new normal within our business, which is not unique. You see a lot of people who run group events hosting Zoom events now. Is there anyone here who's found a unique or creative way to kind of, maintain visibility? I know there are some people here that I've seen have found some creative ways to remain visible, but we're all trying new things. We're all trying to have to figure this out. So just, now it's been about 4 weeks. So we've all felt and seen different things happening week by week. I'm curious to see where some of you are now in terms of what you've changed and what's working. Anybody?
so I could, yeah. So I think one of the things too that I've seen is in the first month, it was really great to reconnect with your customers. It was really great to touch base with your power partners, say hi to people that you see all the time, and eventually that pipeline kind of dries up. So, the reason, for me, I network all the time. I do 17 events in a week, and this is a whole different animal. So what I've kind of been doing is utilizing some power partners and creating smaller groups to get to meet new people. I think, Jenny, you're coming to one for next week. And, it's basically, and I encourage a lot of people to do this, a small room of like 9 people, tag up with 2 power partners. Everybody invites 2 people, and now you've got a room full, maybe some people that you don't know, and it's an opportunity to grow your network, continue to reconnect with people, run through your LinkedIn connections. This is a great time to clean them out and get rid of people. If you don't know their face, it's time to unfriend them, right? And then it also opens up the opportunity to run through those connections and see who you haven't talked to in some time and just send them a quick message, because internet traffic and visibility is through the roof because everybody's in front of their machines and on their phones. And it's a great opportunity just to get in front of people. It's very easy right now. So
is anyone focusing on developing new strategic partnerships? Do you feel as though you're all still reacting, or are you starting to develop some new plans, some different verticals, or how long is it taking you even? This is like a multifaceted question here, but I'm really trying to take the temperature of everyone and where they are today versus where they were a month ago and where you think you're going to be. If anyone has any insight or wants to share anything.
I'll jump on that, Jenny,
okay,
if you don't mind. Yeah, we run tutoring companies here in South Jersey, and it's been it's an uphill climb for the first few weeks because we had to implement systems we just weren't prepared for. It's just, all of a sudden one day you're not in your storefront anymore, and you've got to find a new way to connect with your clients and do business. So we've gone to an online model for the short term, communicating with our clients, communicating with our staff, in just ways we're not used to anymore. So it took a lot of time to get that put together. Done now, starting to communicate, starting to work. Gaining new clients is the big challenge for the moment. I'm looking at people. I feel like people are just frozen to some extent. They're sitting at home, they're watching Netflix, they're helping their kids get their schoolwork done. They're trying to get their work done for schoolwork, for their job if they're working from home, and then they don't do much else. They're not going out, they're not buying things, they're not thinking about services beyond what it takes to put food on the table and serve a meal. And watch a video with the group and have a Zoom call happy hour with folks. That's what I think is happening, but I'm also starting to see it opening up a little bit. I do hope and pray, frankly, that if once we're released from our staying in our homes, I don't know if we're going to see 1,000 people out of PJ Wellahans necessarily, but I think people are going to want to be out having some social action and can't wait to get out from being cooped up in the house.
So is there anyone that not a lot has changed for. Am I the only one, not other than not having events and switching to Zoom? I have been working from home, so I'm not feeling the effects of it in terms of myself personally in change in my space and my environment. But for some of you who have to maybe commute 2 hours a day or during certain times of the year, or I know, Tom, you guys have been having virtual happy hours. I know there are a lot of creative people still on this call, so I'm trying to get everyone to kind of chime in and share something that we can
from a commercial real estate perspective, you know, I work with Wolf Commercial Real Estate, and we're a really very tight group, and we thrive off of being with each other, and that came to a grinding halt. So we, once a week now, we all get on a happy hour. In fact, it's tonight at 5 o'clock, every Thursday night at 5 o'clock, and we all grab our favorite beverage and we just hang out for an hour or so and talk, and we get that banter going back and forth that we normally have in the office. From a business perspective, when it comes to commercial real estate, I deal primarily with investors. Like I don't do the leases. I mean, like that's kind of like my niche. I deal with people that want to pick up investment properties. So that has come to a screeching halt. Like nobody's looking for an investment property at the moment. I suspect, however, as soon as this is all over or being close to being over, that that will pick up very quickly, and they're probably going to be looking for different, like we're going to have a new normal with pricing when it comes to that as well. So from that perspective, that's what's been happening. And I also work in technology, and quite honestly, I thought we were going to have a little bit more, like with everybody working from home, a lot more business from that perspective, because I work on cloud solutions and connectivity and whatnot. And the people that I've spoken to are really kind of rolling the dice. And they've actually said that to me. Like, you know, this isn't going to last that forever. And we're just kind of rolling the dice right now and getting by and doing what we can until everybody comes back into the office. So they're not really looking for a permanent solution or anything like that. When I mean rolling the dice, I mean, when somebody goes from the office to a home environment and then connecting into the office network and environment, there's a lot of areas there that you know, open up for, you know, hackers to come in or security breaches and whatnot. So when I say rolling the dice, all that security is not in place, and they're just kind of, you know, winging it until this is over. I was really thinking that people would take it a little bit more seriously and look at the security issues and the breaches that could potentially happen in this type of a scenario, but that's not happening. Some people are, but a lot of people that I've spoken to are not.
There are a lot of compliance issues involved in that when you're at home using your home computer to log into your company's corporate network, and you're downloading information or printing information. There's liability there, and people don't understand that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a big deal, and people should probably look more into that. You can Google most of that information. I would recommend it. And I would also recommend, if you are sitting at home, because obviously I'm an IT company, if you're working from home, you should do smart things like change your Wi-Fi password often, you know, just simple things like that. The best security defense there is you. If you see an email that doesn't look right, don't open it. If it has a character out of place, if it looks like, you know what, I didn't have any money coming to me, or my bank wasn't supposed to reach out to me, just delete it. Call your bank. Don't.
And that Prince from overseas. Yeah. Has anybody ever gotten that email? Some Prince is trying to get money.
Yeah, whatever it is, just delete it. It's not worth the time and the aggravation. You are your best defense. It's the number one thing.
So I know as a result of all this, Sandy student has been contemplating maybe creating a social media page specifically for his very, very popular dog, Rocky. So Rocky, the chick magnet, might have his own social media page. That said, there's a huge increase, and Jason's not here to support with the numbers. Andy may know them. It's like 70% increase in social media usage. And Dave and I were talking a little bit about social media and our love and hate of certain platforms, but I know I spend a little bit more time on social media. I don't think that I'm happy about it, so I have to kind of step away from it, not just to read the news, but as a form of social interaction. And like Dave said, you really can't replace being in a room with anyone, but has anyone who didn't love social media quickly fallen in love with it, or have you maybe created a new platform for yourself to use that or you haven't used before, Instagram, or has anyone like expanded their social media outreach directly for themselves personally?
And I've been getting a ton more requests to connect, like on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And unfortunately, it like social media has become more of a black hole for me. It just kind of sucks me in. I gotta, like you said, Jenny, step away from it a little bit. It's you know, it just over the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's been like that. I know my daughter created an Instagram profile for her dog. So there you go, Sandy.
I'm just worried no one will look at me. They'll all look at Rocky's page, you know.
Well, that may or may not be true. You understand social media.
All about you,
People
Sandy.
recognize you without your mustache. So, okay. Well, I'd love to see if you guys have any other things that you wanted to maybe bring to the attention of the group, to me, to Sandy. It's a little bit after 2. We said we would wrap up at 2:15 before we close. And we did this last time we did our event, kind of talked a little bit about personally, does anyone have any type of encouragement or any ideas, anything that has been helping them? For me, essential oils have been really great for me. Meditation and taking breaks from social media, obviously, but I definitely don't know if there's anything specifically. Taking walks, everything that people are saying, staying hydrated. One of our friends here is an expert at hydration. What are you guys doing to keep on keeping on these days?
If I could just give you something that I found to be invigorating, I'm having a cooking contest among 7 of us. So 6 other people, myself, and each night we send each other. Now we don't do it on social media, but we send it about who created the most outrageous dinner for me. And no, I mean, it's gotten to the point where we're trying to one up each other now, and I become like a master chef. It's got to look perfect on the plate, and you know, I make sure it's colorful, and you're all laughing, but it's.
So what's for dinner tonight, Sandy?
You're coming for dinner tonight, man?
No, I just want to know what's for dinner.
Tonight, it's
Curbside pickup, right?
No. You got to make it yourself. It's swordfish with a lemon caper butter, and it's grilled asparagus. It's a salad, and it's blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries with vanilla sorbet.
Wow.
Time can I pick it up?
Curbside pickup. You know, quite by accident, I found on Comcast there's these educational programs. So I'm learning how to make bread. You know, there's an 8-segment course on how to, like, the science of bread and like it's taking me through, and I'm learning how to make bread.
So I think that is pretty awesome. I'm learning a lot myself. So Runyon jumped off real quick, but something that I wanted to tell you guys that my own question sparked my answer to, and he disappeared, was something he told me about. So if any of you guys are friends with a guy on Facebook, or you're on Facebook and you want to see something really cool, his name is Ted Baker. Just the traditional spelling, Tedbaker. He's a Morristown guy. and he travels in different circles, but he has this blowout piano bar that he has been inviting people to. So he does a virtual happy hour, and he plays Billy Joel, he plays Elton John, and to the point where you would want to go see him perform. So if anybody wants to join John and I for happy hour on Fridays, we're at Ted Baker's house, and he's got a big baby grand piano, and he will keep going, and he takes requests. It's really kind of fun, and it's kind of a nice break if you like music and you would enjoy that kind of thing. So you're welcome to join us. But yeah. So I think that's it. So thank you again, Sandy. I'm going to give you my own round of applause. We hope to see you guys all. We'll be following up with an email. We hope to see you all in a couple of weeks when Jason comes to talk about marketing and things are going to be changing every day until then. So hopefully we'll have some more good news. And again, thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it. I'll see you all soon.
Always a pleasure, Jenny.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
When you say unit or sub-brand, and which?
Be safe.